Cod is one of the most important fish species in the world's fisheries, especially in the North Atlantic and North Pacific, where abundant cod stocks have supported millions of fishermen for centuries. To exploit this fish, fishermen have developed many different fishing methods, each with its own advantages, limitations and impacts on the marine environment. Of these, bottom trawling is considered the most popular. Fishermen use giant nets that are dragged close to the seabed by large capacity vessels, herding cod into net bags. This method is highly effective because it can capture a large volume of fish in just one pull, suitable for large-scale commercial fishing. However, it is also controversial because it damages the seabed habitat, disrupts natural ecosystems and often catches many other species. In addition, another traditional method is using purse seine. This is a technique of dropping a long net around a school of cod as they move in large groups. When the net is closed, the fish are herded into the middle and brought onto the boat. This method is often applied when fishermen detect schools of fish on the water surface through direct observation or modern sonar equipment. Purse nets have the advantage of being quick and less labor-intensive, but also have the risk of catching unwanted species. In parallel, handline and longline are also popular forms, especially in coastal areas or when fishing on a small scale. Handline only uses a fishing line with a simple bait hook, while longline uses many hooks attached to a long line, lowered deep into the sea. This method has a high selectivity, limits the catching of the wrong species, and the quality of the fish is often better because it is less crushed. However, the disadvantage is that the yield is low, not meeting the needs of industrial exploitation. In addition, there are methods of fishing with fish traps and nets, mainly used by small fishing communities in cold seas. Traps are usually made of wood, mesh or metal, placed in shallow bottom areas, luring cod into the water and preventing them from escaping. This method has little impact on the environment, is effective in the long term, but the yield is also very limited. In modern industry, some fishing vessels also use combined technology, scanning sonar to find fish while dropping trawls or purse seines, thereby improving efficiency. It can be seen that from traditional manual methods to large-scale fishing technology, the ultimate goal of fishermen is still to make the most of cod resources. However, along with the pressure of exploitation, many countries have now introduced specific management regulations, quotas and seasons to protect cod stocks from the risk of decline. This shows that the choice of fishing method does not only depend on yield but is also associated with the responsibility of protecting the marine environment and developing sustainable fisheries for the future in addition to the main fishing methods mentioned above. In practice, fishermen in many sea areas also flexibly combine many different techniques depending on the cod migration season. Weather conditions and available equipment. In winter, when cod often swim deep to the bottom to find bait, bottom trawling and longline methods are preferred because they can directly approach the fish schools. On the contrary, in spring and early summer, when they move in large schools in the middle or near the surface to spawn, fishermen prefer to use purse seine, because the efficiency of catching a much higher number of fish. Some northern European fishing communities still maintain the traditional handline fishing method, considering it not only a way to make a living but also a traditional cultural feature that has been preserved through many generations. In this method, fishermen often go out to sea in small boats, using long fishing lines with herring or squid bait, then drop them into the deep sea where cod gather. The yield is not much, but the fish caught are still fresh and have high commercial value on the market. In Iceland and Norway, a special method is to use fixed bottom nets. Fishermen drop long nets to the seabed. Fix them with anchors, and then leave them for several hours or overnight. The cod will get caught in the net as they move. This method is highly effective, does not require the ship to continuously pull the net, reduces fuel consumption, but also has the potential to entangle other marine species or disrupt the flow. In addition, in recent years, the application of environmentally friendly fishing technology has also been focused on. Some ships use nets with large mesh sizes to allow juveniles to escape, keeping only adults. This helps maintain the cod population and minimizes the risk of resource depletion. Some places have even tested smart fish traps, integrated with sensors to only close when enough cod has entered, minimizing bycatch. Thus, cod fishing methods both reflect the diversity of fishermen's experiences and show the change of the fishing industry from traditional to modern. Each technique has its pros and cons, but the general trend is to combine economic efficiency with protection of the marine environment. Because cod is not only an important source of food and income, but also an essential part of the cold ocean ecosystem. Without proper management and appropriate fishing methods, the fish once considered the white gold of the sea could gradually disappear, leading to unpredictable consequences for both the economy and the environment. Another notable aspect of cod fishing methods is the difference between industrial and small-scale fishermen. Large fishing corporations often own modern vessels equipped with radar, sonar, cold storage and onboard processing lines, allowing them to drag purse seines or bottom trawls for days at a time. The advantage of this is the ability to harvest huge volumes of cod and store them immediately to maintain quality. However, this also increases the pressure on natural resources, forcing countries with large fishing grounds such as Norway, Iceland, Russia and Canada to impose strict quotas to avoid overfishing. In contrast, small-scale fishermen, especially in Greenland and the Faroe Islands, often rely on manual methods such as longlines, traps and bottom nets. Although the yield is small, this method helps to preserve cod better, while maintaining traditional values and providing a quality advantage because the fish are processed by hand, with less damage. Some communities also organize seasonal fishing, only going out to sea at the right time when the cod migrates closer to shore to spawn, thereby reducing costs and avoiding putting pressure on the offshore population. In addition, in the context of climate change and the changing marine environment, many new initiatives are also being tested to optimize fishing. For example, some boats use underwater cameras to directly observe the fish before dropping the net, in order to accurately determine the density of cod and limit the wrong species being caught. Some places also use GPS positioning systems combined with scientific data to choose the right location to set traps or drop nets, avoiding areas where fishing is prohibited or where there are species that need to be preserved. All of these improvements are aimed at a sustainable fishery, where production is not only measured in tons of cod landed, but also linked to the ability to maintain long-term populations. Cod is an iconic cold water fish that has fed generations of fishermen and become a global trade commodity. so choosing a wise, environmentally safe fishing method that ensures both immediate economic benefits and the preservation of resources for future generations is always a key factor in all fishing activities for this species. International laws and national management are also important factors in regulating cod fishing methods. In the North Atlantic, where cod is most abundant, regional fisheries management organizations have issued strict rules. For example, the North Atlantic Fisheries Commission, NAFO, and national management agencies in Norway, Iceland and Canada all apply annual catch quotas and clearly stipulate the types of fishing gear allowed. Bottom trawlers must comply with regulations on mesh size. Avoiding catching juvenile fish that have not yet reached adulthood. Some important cod spawning areas are completely closed during the season, to allow the population to regenerate. At the same time, fishermen must also keep a fishing log, report the yield and type of fish caught, to help authorities closely monitor the situation. Such interventions have helped some fisheries that were severely depleted by overfishing in the 20th century recover. In Norway, many selective fishing programs were promoted, using nets and special equipment to allow small fish to escape while retaining only adult cod, thereby maintaining product quality while protecting the long-term resource. In Canada, after the catastrophic Newfoundland cod runoff in the early 1990s, the government banned all industrial fishing for several years, while encouraging fishing communities to switch to more sustainable methods such as long lines and small-scale traps. This costly lesson became proof that chasing output without regard to ecological limits can quickly wipe out a seemingly endless resource. Today, with global demand for cod still high, the need to strike a balance between efficient fishing methods and conservation of marine resources is even more urgent. It can be said that the popular methods of catching cod are not simply a means of survival, but also reflect a constant struggle between exploitation and conservation, between short-term economic benefits and long-term responsibility for the ocean. Therefore, improvements in fishing gear, strict legal regulations and increasing awareness among fishermen are the foundation to ensure that this iconic fish will continue to exist and feed people for many more centuries, in addition to regulatory and technical improvements. Another important aspect of cod fishing is the role of science and technology in monitoring stocks. Oceanographic research institutes in Northern Europe, North America and Russia regularly conduct large-scale surveys with research vessels, using sonar equipment, survey nets and underwater cameras to estimate cod population densities. The results are then passed on to governments and fisheries organizations to set appropriate quotas for each year. Beyond research, science also directly supports fishermen in actual fishing. Modern vessels can connect directly to satellite data systems, monitor sea temperature, currents and fish movements, thereby choosing the time and location to cast nets more effectively. The application of this technology helps reduce blind fishing, save fuel costs, and limit negative impacts on unnecessary areas. At the same time, commercial factors also contribute to shaping fishing methods. Today's consumers, especially in Europe and North America, tend to prefer seafood products with sustainability certifications such as the Marine Stewardship Council, MSC. This forces cod fishing companies to demonstrate that they use methods that are less destructive to the environment and responsible for wild populations. Therefore, selective fishing methods such as longlines, large mesh nets, traps or controlled bottom nets are increasingly encouraged. Many businesses also build transparent supply chains, from fishing to processing and distribution, to build trust with buyers. In some coastal communities, combining tourism with cod fishing is also gradually becoming a trend. Tourists can experience cod fishing on small boats, learn about traditional preservation and processing methods. This form not only creates additional income but also helps raise awareness of conservation of this fish species in the community. Thus, from a basic subsistence activity, cod fishing has become a complex economic sector, combining science, law, technology and global markets. Different fishing methods not only reflect the ingenuity and adaptation of fishermen to harsh natural conditions, but also represent a long-term evolution of humanity in exploiting and managing marine resources. If commercial needs and ecological responsibility can be balanced, cod can continue to be a sustainable resource, closely associated with human life in cold seas in the distant future. To put it more comprehensively, each method of cod fishing is not only linked to the efficiency of production, but also closely linked to the culture, tradition and livelihood of each coastal community. In Norway, the cod season is considered a major event, where fishermen go out to sea in both large and small boats, using everything from industrial purse seines to traditional hand lines. Cod is caught not only for sale but also for processing into special dishes such as klippfisk, dried salted cod, or lutefisk, cod in alkali, which have become part of the cultural life of the people. In Iceland, where cod is known as the white gold of the sea, fishing is an economic pillar and fishing methods also reflect the level of modernization of society. While large ships use high technology to optimize catch, in small villages, people still keep the manual fishing method, considering it a source of pride for their heritage. In Canada's Newfoundland, memories of the cod collapse of the 1990s still haunt fishermen. Reminding them to be careful about their fishing methods so as not to repeat the disaster. In Russia, especially in the Barents Sea, large-scale industrial fleets using trawls and purse seines still dominate, but they are also subject to strict quotas and environmental regulations. Meanwhile, in Greenland, trapping and longlining remain traditional, both for local consumption and for export at high prices. These differences show that while the same fish is harvested, the geographic, economic, and cultural contexts have created diversity in fishing methods. If one views cod solely as a commercial resource, it is easy to miss the cultural depth it brings to the peoples living on the cold coast. Therefore, the common methods of catching cod are not simply a means of livelihood, but also a link between people and the sea, between the present and the past. When a fisherman casts a net or holds a line in his hand, that action is not only to catch fish, but also to continue a tradition of hundreds of years. Demonstrating the ingenuity in exploiting and protecting natural resources. From this perspective, we can see the full value of choosing the right fishing method. It is a balance between economy, ecology and culture, so that cod does not only exist in production statistics, but also continues to live in the memory, identity and future of coastal communities in addition to their economic and cultural value. Cod fishing methods also reflect a change in people's perception of the environment and marine resources. In the past, when cod resources were extremely abundant, fishermen were almost exclusively concerned with output, trying to find ways to harvest as much as possible. Bottom trawls, large-scale purse seines, and giant boats were once symbols of the power of ocean exploitation. However, when signs of resource depletion appeared, especially the collapse of the Newfoundland fishery, views gradually changed. People realized that the ocean was not an endless source, and that every fishing method left a trace. affecting the ecosystem. It was this change that promoted the trend of developing selective fishing methods, minimizing negative impacts. Improvements such as nets with escape hatches for small fish, environmentally friendly fish traps, and smart monitoring devices all aimed at a common goal, ensuring that the cod population was able to regenerate for the following seasons. In many places, fishermen are directly involved in conservation programs, collaborating with scientists to provide data on fish stocks and production. They understand that protecting fish stocks is protecting their own long-term livelihoods. The story of cod fishing thus becomes a typical example of the shift from pure exploitation to sustainable development in the global fisheries industry. Today, when a boat leaves port to set sail, the choice of fishing method is not only based on economic efficiency, but also on legal regulations, market demands and environmental responsibility. It is this multi-dimensional constraint that has made the cod fishery constantly change and improve. Maintaining centuries-old traditions while adapting to new challenges of the times. Cod is thus not only an important commercial fish, but also a mirror of the complex relationship between humans and the ocean, where each fishing method tells a story of